on the bank of the Yarra, just out the front of Crown Melbourne for the 2015 Aussie Millions. But all the action is happening inside as we head to the final table for the main event. We started off with 648 players and saw some of the biggest names in poker with Phil Ivey, Ollie Chemion and Patrick Antonius. And after 4 days of play, we're now down to our final 7. Let's head inside and see who's a step closer to walking away with $1.6 million in prize money and the LK Boutique Championship bracelet.
Thank you, Jamie. And there are the 7 players that will make up our final table right here at the Aussie Millions main event in 2015. And let's take a look at the leaderboard, because sitting on top is James Rahn from the UK, followed closely behind by Joel Dwagen from France and Lennart Uphoff from Germany. And as you can see, there are 2 Aussies on our final table, Anthony Legg and Manny Stavropoulos. Making up the final table are 2 players from the United States, Richard Lindacker and Brian Rast, who is our shortest stack. There is where they will be seated. And here is a little bit of the story about how they got here.
There were a couple big hands that helped propel me to the final table. On day 2, I played a really big pot where I had aces and someone had ace-king and an ace flopped. We were 2 decent-sized stacks, so that really helped me get going.
You're always worried when you have to put all your money in, no matter what hands you have. I won a very big pot the first day. I actually flopped a set, and in the end I was up against 2 guys with 1 pair, so that's about as safe as it gets with all your money in.
Day 2 was just amazing. I hardly lost a hand all day. Got to play with a lot of my heroes, like sort of Phil Ivey, Gruesome. I hardly lost a pot, so day 2 just couldn't have gone really any better.
So on day 4, I got moved in position on Phil Ivey, which like the heart got racing a bit, but I got lucky on him and managed to knock out Phil Ivey. So I was pretty happy.
Of course, I've been a bit lucky. I had ace-jack. On the flop, he comes a queen, a king. A guy is pushing. So I was like, wow. What about if a 10 was coming? On the river, a 10's arrived. Then he pushed all in and I called, of course.
We got down from 30 to 12 players so quickly. And I knew the stacks were deep and it was going to take a long time.
It really flew down to 12. Right when we got down to 2 tables, it's like that's when it hit everyone, and I think the intensity really ratcheted up.
Yeah, it was tense. I mean, everybody wanted to win at that point.
I'm just going to the final table, I just don't want any hands that haunt me in the future.
There's only one guy ever happy in the tournament, which is the guy who wins it.
There's 1.6 million to grab, and yeah, you want to win. You don't want to lose.
648 players began, 7 remain, and there it is, a whopping $1.6 million first prize, and of course the title of Aussie Millions 2015 champion. I sit aside the WSOP 2005 World Champion Joe Hasham, the Aussie Millions, very close to your heart, I know. How does it feel when you see a final table every year?
Paul, I have to give you a minute. I'm just wiping the tear from my eye.
Well, the action's begun.
Every time I see this final table and I'm not there, yeah. It's so, like, Melbourne's my hometown. Crown is my home to play poker. And watching the Aussie Millions grow and develop into the tournament that is today makes me feel so proud. And seeing we've got 2 Aussies out there today in the final table, I think we're up for a good battle, because Aussies love nothing more than being the underdog, and let's hope one of us takes it down.
Well, the action has begun with the first of our Aussies, Manny Stavropoulos, raising with ace-queen offsuit to 125k.
Call.
And he gets a call from James Rahn from the UK, our big stack, and he's got pocket 9s.
Manny's a local player, played with him quite a bit actually over the years. Lovely guy.
Folds around to Joel Dwagen from France.
I like Rahn's smooth call with the 9s here. There's no need to bloat the pot first hand of the final table.
Looks like we're going to get a call from Dwagen as well. So 3 players. Lennart Uphoff from Germany folds, and Dwagen with a, well, it looks like a bit of a loosish call with king-jack offsuit.
An ambitious 3-bet, to be honest, isn't it? Or did he call?
No, he flats.
Oh, he flats, okay. Well, still ambitious, out of position. You don't know what you want to hit.
And the flop. A 3-6-3 flop. So, Rahn ahead with 9s. Action on Dwagen. He checks. Over to Manny now.
This should go check, check, bet, fold, fold. depending on how Manny's feeling.
Well, it looked
What
like
he's representing now.
Manny's reaching for chips. Pre-flop aggressor continues after the flop.
Betting 260.
260 is the bet. Over to Ran now, who just glares over at Manny.
Yep, correct.
Makes the call.
Good call.
Over to Dwaglen, who I would imagine will get out of the way. And he does. So 2 players remain. We go to the turn. And it is a 7 of diamonds. Now, action will be on Manny again. Will he fire?
Well, Manny can represent an overpair now, but even an overpair has to check to control the pot size now.
And that's exactly what he does. He checks.
I'd like to see 600. What's
320.
320, wow. A relatively small bet, Joe. Perhaps a value bet.
No, I don't think it's a value bet, Paul. I think it's a bet that, as a player who doesn't have the nuts, you're very suspicious of that size of bet. Is he betting so small to lure me into raising to get more chips in the pot? Or is he bluffing?
Well, Manny folds his hand, so the first hand of our final table goes towards the big stack. What does it feel like as a player to see the big stack grow, Joe?
It's the best feeling ever. Having chips in front of you like a big chip stack is the best.
We're here at LK Boutique, home to Australia's most extensive collection of high-end watches, luxury gifts, accessories and jewellery. All the Aussie Millions jewellery is supplied through LK Boutique, including the 20 championship rings and the crown jewel of Australian poker, the diamond-encrusted main event bracelet. The 2015 bracelet is made of 18 carat yellow gold, contains 234 white diamonds, 29 black diamonds and 24 rubies. Designed by LK Boutique and manufactured in Milan, the creation of the bracelet involves over 26 hours of design and 56 hours of production. The bracelet is truly one of a kind, and while it's valued at over $35,000, it certainly is something money can't buy.
There is the beautiful LK Boutique bracelet they are playing for, of course, alongside the title of Aussie Millions Champion 2015 and that $1.6 million first prize. There is James Rahn, who just won a hand and he's extended his lead slightly. And all the way down the bottom, the US players making up the bottom, Brian Rast and Richard Lindacker. In shot, you see Anthony Legg, the second of our Australians, trying to win on home soil. Round to Joel Dwaglen from France. Colourful character at this final table. The countries represented here, USA, Germany, France, the UK, and of course the 2 from Australia. Lennart Uphoff in shot from Germany. Joe, you would have been playing all around the world for the last decade, played from many countries, and the play varies according to those countries.
Yeah, I mean, you have all sorts. Like the range is from super tight to super loose, from super passive to super aggressive, depending on which part of the world you're in. We've got a good mixture at this final table for sure.
Lennart Uphoff raises to 125,000 with pocket kings. And James Rahn from the UK, who was involved a little earlier, looks like he's going to come along for the ride. He's out of position in the small blind with ace-10 of diamonds, Joe.
Fair call. Nice hand to call with. He's got a big stack, so he can afford to mix it up a little bit.
Brian Rast in the big blind will complete with a loose-ish ace-deuce offsuit.
Yeah, I think it helped that Rahn called in front of him.
And look at that.
And he probably knew the flop was coming out with a double deuce, right?
The flop. Brian Rast flops trips. Deuce, 7 deuce. And Uphoff with kings. Could be in a bit of trouble here. Rahn checks now. Action over to Rast, who's probably the most feared player at this table with 2 World Series of Poker bracelets. He checks.
He's definitely the top of the field in this final table for sure. He's also a good friend of mine and he's a great player. But this Uphoff guy is definitely got a continuation bet here. It looks like the safest flop you could imagine.
Betting 150.
150,000 into a pot of 445,000. Action now on the Brit.
Now, Rahn's got to know that Rast is behind him, so he can't get too cute. I'd like to see Rast raise here and try and entice up off to get more chips in the pot early. Because if you're up off, you're not going to think someone's going to, with three deuces, going to raise you, right?
Well, Rast just calls that time. The turn now, a queen of spades. Action on Brian Rast from the United States. He's one of the short stacks. No, Joe, he doesn't listen, he checks.
Don't you know he's got kings, Brian?
Over to Uphoff now. Will he fire again?
I think he probably should fire again. Probably a third of the pot.
Betting 275.
275.
That's about right. Now, does Rast ramp it up here, or does he wait? At what point does Brian think it's a good time to put more money in the pot to get the other guy committed to the pot?
The pot, a tickle over $1 million now, and he announces all in. You're right, Joe, he pulls the trigger. Over to Uphoff, and he announces call very quickly.
Cards, please.
And they roll him over, and Uphoff will be, well, then he grabs a little bit of his jumper and sort of leans into it and looks a little bit resigned.
I mean, don't forget, Rast was short stacked with this hand as well, so, I mean, Uphoff's calling regardless, so just unlucky that he was out flopped.
Well, if Rast survives the river and we don't see a king, he will make a very needed double up. The river is a three of diamonds, so Brian Rast, a very important double up in the context of this final table, and I can't imagine the other players at the final table would be happy seeing the chips go that way.
If I was there, I wouldn't be happy seeing Brian get more chips. I would be rooting for a king so bad on the river.
There's always expectations that come with the past. Listen, I'm only as good as how I'm playing right now. What I've done in the past is in the past. The future is gonna come, but every decision I make at the poker table is defining how good I am. So I need to forget about what I've done and just focus on making the right decisions right now, and try to just focus on staying in the moment and staying present.
We are back with the action. Brian Rast, a much needed double up.
We're table virgins in this tournament.
Action on Manny Stavropoulos from right here in Melbourne.
It's funny how someone finds their voice once they have a double up. Brian's cracking jokes straight away.
Well, Brian Rast folds this time round to Anthony Legg, also from Australia. Folds around to the Frenchman on the button.
I think this Frenchman's going to give us some entertainment with that scarf.
He looks a little bit like a pilot.
I can see it coming, 100%.
We already have a piece right here.
Yeah, we do.
Really taking his time.
190.
190,000, he says in his charming French accent, with ace-5 of spades. Lennart Uphoff from Germany in the small blind.
190.
Discount.
His position plays.
Have you seen the lineup for the 250K?
70, was it?
Yeah, it was big. It was big.
bad, huh?
4 of those were mine.
Yeah, you told me that, yeah.
You're welcome, Richard.
You
know?
Look, you think so much I'm stealing you? You want me to show you my hand if you fall?
I think you should show him
I
his
think
hands.
it's going to be the only time.
Time this table side talk.
It's going to be the only time. How much?
Lennart Uphoff here raises in the face of some charming chatter from the Frenchman, and he has pocket kings again and is quickly called by Dwalin in position, Joe.
Dwalin was definitely trying to talk him into folding, but didn't work. He's not going to fold kings.
Well, the second time Uphoff has kings. The first time it cost him a lot of chips. Here is the flop. A 7-4-5 flop with 2 diamonds. So Dwalin hits the flop. It's not enough at this point.
Definitely not enough. But he just his whole demeanour, to me, reads action. Like, he doesn't care that he's just got middle pair here. He might go with it.
Upoff staring at Dwaglen and now reaching for chips. The pot, just over 1.13 million.
355.
355, a relatively small bet.
I'd double it.
70. Double.
Yeah. So
Dwaglen
710.
quickly announces double it. So, trying to put pressure on the German.
Upoff must be like thinking to himself, my God, back-to-back kings, and I'm likely, you know, I could lose another big pot here. It all depends too, Paul, on how much these two have played together throughout the tournament. It's been a 5-day tournament. So they may have spent a lot of time together, and Upoff may have a read on him or may understand how he plays.
Well, Upoff announces all in, so the pressure is now back on the Frenchman, who removes his sunglasses.
Can you call my 7-10, please?
Yeah.
Oh, the Frenchman leaning over the table, looking at all the chips very carefully. Very animated character is Joel Dwaglen.
7-10.
Now, Joe, is this just posturing? Surely he doesn't think he's good here.
No, 100% doesn't think he's good. He's just thinking, is it worth my time calling? What odds am I getting, you know, compared to what chips I've got to put in the pot, which we talk about all the time. We're talking about pot odds all the time.
And he announces call, so the Frenchman with an incredible call, really.
Pocket kings going up against Joel's ace-5 of spades. Joel has hit mid-pair with a pair of fives.
Well, perhaps lamenting his call now. The turn, a 9 of clubs.
As long as there is no ace, no 5 on the river,
Lennart Upoff from Germany facing a river here. He will be eliminated if we see a 5 or an ace on the river.
River card.
An astonishing turn of events here. The river, a 3 of spades. So Lennart Upoff from Germany, this time his kings worked.
1 million, 20.
How does he fade an ace there? I don't understand.
Well, a vital misstep, really, from the Frenchman.
Well, I knew that scarf meant action.
The most important thing for a poker player, patience on a bit of craziness. Yeah, if you raise or someone re-raise, it's like a punch, So you got to put craziness in your game. I mean, otherwise I will play the aces and the kings, and if I wait for the aces and the kings, and sometimes they lose. And sometimes they lose. No, I've got no chance to win.
Welcome back to the Aussie Millions here in 2015. Some beautiful shots of Melbourne in Australia. And there is the leaderboard. Lennart Upoff from Germany, a big double up, right up to 4.6 million now. James Rahn followed closely behind with 4.3 from the UK. And Richard Lindacker from the United States is our short stack with a little under 1 million in chips. Cards are in the air. I sit next to the World Series of Poker main event champion himself, Joe Hasham, hometown. Well, the Aussie Millions is very close to your heart. What have you picked up so far from the action from these players?
Well, obviously our friend, Mr. Dwaglen, is the action player at the table. He's also the character, I think. The guys look pretty relaxed. They've probably been playing with each other for a while. Manny's been pretty quiet, but he tends to always be quiet at the table, Manny. He just likes to get on with the job. He's pleasant but quiet and lets his chips do the talking.
Action is on Lennart Upoff from Germany, who's just doubled up through the Frenchman to his right. He has the button.
That's the trick, Joel. You got to leave them like here separate with a little gap. The gap, that's the power gap. Right. If they're just touching, then it's not as lucky.
Makes it 125 on the button.
Thank you.
Oh.
Folds around. Action will be on Manny Stavropoulos from right here in Melbourne. And Upoff with 9-4 of diamonds.
Notice how Upoff covers his mouth every time he is involved in the hand. I've seen that a lot these days, and that's come from Joe Navarro, the FBI guy who was teaching people poker tells, and
Lennart folds.
He taught everyone that when you're uncomfortable, you purse your lips. So people now all over the world are just covering their mouth when they're playing.
Well, it didn't work that time. Manny Stavropoulos raised with King Jack offsuit out of the big blind and told him to go away with his 9-4 of diamonds. Back to the action. Position so important in a game like this, Joe.
Position, my friend. Believe me. I mean, position gives you so much power. You get to see what your opponent's going to do first. Or your opponents, if it's a multiple-way pot. You get to control the hand, basically, from position.
Action on our short stack. Richard Lindacker from the United States. He folds. Interesting sunnies, by the way. Round to Manny.
I couldn't pull them off, mate.
And he gets out of the way as well. James Rahn, who began our final table as our big stack. He is on the button.
It's almost a compulsory raise here from Rahn with a big stack and having the button. Like, it's regardless, his holding is irrelevant.
Raise 135.
135 is the raise on the button. You're right, Joe. Today's game, it's almost expected. He has ace-10 offsuit.
That's near the top of his range, to be honest.
Almost a surprise.
On the button.
Over to Brian Rast, who he looks like a bit of a lead singer of a band, actually, but one hell of a poker player, averaging over 1.5 million in winnings since 2010. 2 World Series of Poker bracelets.
Raise.
And he's going to
405.
get aggressive. 405.
You got to understand Brian's spot here, right? Regardless of his holding, knowing that Rahn has the button with a big chip stack and he's going to be raising almost 100% of the time, gives Rast a lot of room to raise him back out of the small blind. The fact that he's got kings is just a bonus. And now Rahn may play back at him on that basis, thinking that he's 3-bet him because he feels that he's weak to start with.
Well, he certainly didn't go away. He flats on the button, has position, and as you can see, Rast with kings. And the flop, a king 7-3 flop. So James Rahn could be in a little bit of trouble here if he's.
I don't see how he can be in too much trouble. He hasn't hit a 10 or an ace, so unless he's going to, just blow a head gasket and try and bluff Rast off this hand, I can't see him losing too many more chips.
Well, Brian Rast looks like he's going to lead.
Rightly so. If you 3-bet from the small blind, you should generally lead into the pot, like at least 90% of the time.
940,000 in the middle. He makes it 335,000 to go. Can't imagine James Rahn will get messy here.
No, but he could take one off because he knows Rast has to lead into this pot almost all the time. So doesn't need to bloat the pot and raise it, but his hand, certainly with an ace, can take one off. He decides to fold, which is fair call as well.
Well, a little curious look before the fold, but you're right, Joe.
He wasn't
gets
very
out of
happy
the way.
about it, but he's thinking to himself, well, you know what, I'll give him credit. I'll let it go this time. But his hand warrants a call any day of the week. Either call or fold is fine. A raise would have been a bit ambitious.
I mean, luck's just part of the game. You've just got to try and roll with the punches, I guess. I played with Rast now for what feels like almost 2 days and had him on my direct left. And at the end of the second day, when we were sort of bagging up, he said to me, "Oh, well done, you played really well. You're a constant pain, and considering you're out of position, that's a real compliment." And that definitely gave me a lot of confidence.
Let's talk pot odds now. Joe, how does someone work out the percentage of them having a winning hand?
That's a very complex question, actually, Jamie. For today's purposes, I'll try and simplify it as much as I can for the audience, and I'll give the example of making a flush, okay? So, for example, let's say I have 2 clubs in my hand, and there are 2 clubs on the flop. That's 4 clubs, and I'm looking to make a flush now. We know there are 9 clubs left in the deck. You multiply 9 by 4, gives you 36%. So now I know I have a 36% chance of making my flush. On the turn, if I haven't made my flush yet, I still have 9 clubs left in the deck, but I only have 1 card left to come. I'd multiply 9 by 2, which gives me 18%. at this point I have an 18% chance of making my flush. And if you can understand how that works, you can use it for any other hand that you have. Whether you have a straight draw, whether you have a pair draw, you work out the number of outs that you have on the flop, multiply it by 4, the number of outs that you have on the turn and multiply it by 2. That'll give you an approximate percentage of how often you'll make your hand.
Well, thank you so much for that, Joe. Now let's head back to the final table.
There is our leaderboard. Lennart Uphoff from Germany sits atop with a little over 4.2 million in chips. James Rahn, who has got about 3.8, follows. And Joe, a little bit of chips interchanging here. Some valuable advice you were giving, Jamie, I noticed. You don't... do you charge for that kind of advice? I mean, it's very valuable.
I've got a lot of tidbits coming along the way during this broadcast, so hopefully the audience will get something out of it and be able to win their home game with their friends.
Action on the Brit. James Rahn folds. Round to Brian Rast. He gets out of the way. Round to Anthony Legg from Australia.
Tell me something about Anthony Legg that I don't know.
Anthony Legg, well, he doesn't like working 9 to 5, that's for sure. His biggest cash was in 2014 at the ANZ PT main event. He cashed at 15th place for about $9,300. Not too bad.
Is he? Where is he from? Which state?
He's from right here in Melbourne. In fact, he's from Lilydale. He's got pocket sevens right now. Folds around to the big blind. Richard Lindacker from the United States. Looks like he's going to get involved. The pot a little under 300,000 at the moment. Will he elect to call or will he elect to raise?
Call.
And it looks like he's calling. And he calls with 10-7 of spades, Joe. Interesting.
Fair call.
Little does he know he's dominated at the moment.
Doesn't want to hit a 7, does he?
And the flop. Well, an interesting 8-9-9 flop.
9 of spades, 8 of clubs on the flop.
Wow, this is actually a very interesting hand because Lindacker can easily bet into this pot, can check raise all in, and he knows he's almost never drawing dead. And if he puts some leg on 2 overcards, Lindacker thinks he's got drawing to 2 live outs with the 10 and the 7 as well. He doesn't know that leg has 2 sevens in his hand. He's got a backdoor flush draw as well with the spades.
He only has 610,000 in his stack. 340 in the middle. And you're right, Joe. He fires into him.
Bidding 5.
It's a really interesting bet because he has fold equity here. He can get his opponent to fold right now. If his opponent calls, he can still win the hand by hitting a jack or a 6. So it's a really good bet. I like this bet.
And it's drawn a very curious look from Anthony Legg.
See, Legg may be thinking, you know, has he called me with like an overpair and just want to make sure there's no ace or king on the flop and led out into me. Now I'm getting sucked in with an underpair to the board, to be honest. So I probably wouldn't have folded the 7s there.
I'd hate to disappoint the home crowd, but I may have to win some of their chips. Anthony Leggett surprised me a bit yesterday. When he came to the table, I thought, I don't know, my initial impression was that he was going to be like a smart thinking player, but not playing at a very high level. And then he played a hand very tricky against me that ended up costing me about a third of my stack at kind of a critical time. And it turned out he was a much more capable player than I had expected, which was unfortunate for me in that spot. But now I know what to expect at the final table.
Back to the action. 7 players remain. The 2015 Aussie Millions main event. 648 players began. In shot, James Rahn and Brian Rast.
Interesting what Lindacker was saying about Legg. You don't make this final table by accident. You don't just roll your way in and wake up one day and you've made the final table of the Aussie Millions. You've got to play well to great for 5 days.
Raise to 120.
120,000 from Anthony Legg from Lilydale right here in Melbourne. He has King Jack off suit. Folds around to the German, Lennart Uphoff. He folds. Richard Lindaker from the United States in the small blind.
It's very common today for these guys to take their time, be very deliberate about their thought process before acting on their hand. Sometimes it slows up play, but other times it's warranted, you know, like... And Lindaker is short stacked. He wants to make every decision count.
Raise all in.
And he makes this one count. He announces all in, Joe. There you go. He's got ace jack of clubs. Round to Manny. He's going to take a peek.
Well, if he gets called, he's in great shape, but I doubt he's going to get called.
Holds to Anthony now. Doesn't look happy at all.
If Legg calls, he's purely gambling. He's hoping to be in a flip with like an underpair, hoping that he's got like 9s, 10s, 8s.
Lindaker with a little under $1 million in chips. The pot now 1.19 million. And yes, Joe, he folds. So correct decision.
Good fold, Anthony.
Well, Richard Lindaker really trying to make things happen, increasing that short stack every time.
The live grind is brutally long. Like, you just got to suck it up and grind it out, you know? When there's that much money on the line, like, you got to stay focused. To be dead honest, I just want to live a good, healthy, balanced lifestyle and incorporate poker with it. So if I win, I'll probably buy a bar just so they don't kick me out of my local pub anymore.
Well, some spectacular shots there of Crown in Melbourne, home of poker in Australia. We are back to the action. 7 players remain. The 2015 Aussie Millions main event. And there is the leaderboard. The German, Lennart Uphoff, still sits atop with 4.5 million in chips. James Rahn following closely behind with 3.5. And Richard Lindaker is our short stack with a little over 1,100,000 in chips. There is Richard. He folds round to Manny. One of the 2 remaining Australians here at this final table. Gets out of the way. Folds around to Brian Rast now. He gets out of the way. Anthony Legg on the button. Elects to fold.
An important factor in these majors, as I like to call them, the main events like the Aussie Millions, the World Series, the WPT titles, is that you really have to be able to shift gears from playing solid to being aggressive to folding your way into spots. Basically, these big tournaments are about putting yourself in a position to win. And you just saw Brian Rast with a relatively healthy stack at the moment just quickly fold in the cut-off position, one off the button, where he had position on most of the other players. Obviously, he's deciding to, you know, feel out the table first before he gets involved in too many hands.
Oh, an interesting hand developing here with Joel Dwaglen from France completing the small blind and Lennart Uphoff from Germany checking his option, and he flopped trips. But there's no action at the moment. Goes check, check on the flop. The turn, a 6 of spades now.
Well, Uphoff is, you know, checking behind, baiting Dwaglen. He's hoping that he'll take off and bet into him, but he's the Frenchman is checking his way through as well. Uphoff has to, you know, try and get some money into the pot, so he'll probably fire here, which he's doing.
A small amount, 85,000. The Frenchman wraps the scarf around his neck.
Joel checks and Lennart makes it 85,000.
He only has 1.4 million in chips. And look at this. He raises to 285,000.
This gentleman came to play, didn't he? He doesn't know that he's drawing dead.
Not afraid to ask the question.
No, not at all. It shouldn't even take this long to call, to be honest. Just call.
That's exactly what he does with his full house. And we go to the river. It is now a 10 of spades. Will that change anything?
That's horrible because it's brought the spades out there now. So it may slow him down now.
Surely the Frenchman couldn't fire here.
Surely he can. Told you that scarf just represents everything.
Check.
And he checks.
He was posturing, so I thought he might be doing that. Just trying to get a sense.
And now it becomes about extracting value.
Extracting value. What Uphoff doesn't know, though, is that there's no value to be had because the guy's got nothing. But, however, he still has to try and get something. 200,000, 250, 300,000, that sort of, that sort of bet size. Yeah. I like how Douglin's looking totally uninterested at the moment. And that's what's going through Uphoff's mind right now is how much can I bet and get paid off? He doesn't know that Douglin has nothing to call him with, so it's irrelevant, to be honest.
Lennart makes it 355,000.
355,000 is the bet. Over to the Frenchman. Surely now he's not going to get any more involved in this hand.
No, he's totally given up, but he's just posturing now. Doesn't want to make it seem that he was just bluffing on the turn. Come on, Hollywood.
That's right, Joe. He folds. No more Hollywood from the Frenchman. More chips go towards the German, Lennart Uphoff. And he's starting to build a very nice stack indeed.
Good recovery from where he was after he lost that big pot.
It's no surprise that over the last 4 years, Melbourne has been rated the most livable city in the world by the EUI. With its hidden laneways and cafes, renowned restaurants, trendy rooftop bars and exciting sports precinct, it's hard not to fall in love with Melbourne. The city's stunning 19th century buildings combined with modern cutting-edge architecture, all surrounded by beautiful parks and gardens. Melbourne is an ever-changing city with a vibrant and exciting atmosphere. Visit Federation Square, this city's landmark cultural hub, explore South Bank and its cafes, bistros and bars, enjoy a sunset drink by the beach in St Kilda, discover the boutique stores of Brunswick Street or the designer brands of Chapel Street, and experience cuisines of the world in Carlton, Richmond and Fitzroy. The city is home to a long list of prominent sporting events and famous stadiums. Both sport and the arts are a big part of Melbourne's culture and history. Music, theatre and art festivals run year-round throughout the city. If you're looking to escape the hustle and bustle of the city, take an easy day trip down the Great Ocean Road to the Mornington Peninsula or through the famous Yarra Valley region. So if the Aussie Millions isn't enough to get you here to Melbourne, there is certainly a long list of other reasons why you should come visit.
That's right, Jamie. One of the most beautiful cities in the world and one of the most livable. And it is also home to the Aussie Millions, one of the biggest tournaments in the world. There is our leaderboard. 7 players remain. Lennart Uphoff from Germany sits atop with 5.7 million in chips. But still 7 players remain. Joe, Melbourne is your home. Crown, the home of poker for so long. This is where you began playing.
Certainly is, yeah. I have a lot of fond memories.
He kind of got there in the turn, though.
When you look at this final table, Joe, and how times have changed over the last decade or however many years you've been playing this game, what are the things that stand out the most in terms of changes to poker?
The first thing that stands out is the average age of the final tableist, where it used to be like high 30s, early 40s. Now it's more like mid-20s. And that's just a sign of the times. A lot more youth are playing, a lot more... with online poker, it's brought a whole new generation of people playing. We've got action here.
Well, one of our elder statesmen at the table, Joël Douglin from France, has just moved all in over the top of Brian Rast from the United States. He holds pocket queens. Dwaglen with ace-8 offsuit. The remaining players look like they're getting out of the way, so we've got an all-in situation, and the Frenchman is at a great risk here.
With ace-8 offsuit.
He needs to get lucky.
Brian Rass, pocket queens.
I didn't see you call.
Oh, well.
It's okay.
Brian Rast, who began our day relatively short, has now moved his chips in the right direction. The Frenchman, losing some pretty big pots today, is now at risk and could be our first elimination of our final table. Watching on eagerly the flop. An ace-7-6 flop, 2 diamonds, so the Frenchman gets lucky, Joe.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't mind his play at all. He was short stacked, needed to double up. Having an ace in your hand, you've always got 30% equity against any other hand, except aces, of course.
Rast calling for a diamond, of course. As many tournaments as he's played, seen this situation many times, I'm sure, but it never gets easier. The turn, a 9 of clubs.
Which only helps to improve Dwaglen's hand, but only a queen will do for us now.
The Frenchman hanging on for dear life. If he can avoid a queen on the river, he will double up through Brian Rast. Can barely contain himself. The river is a 6 of spades, so the Frenchman, well, he wins a hand, and look at the sigh of relief on him.
He certainly wears his heart on his sleeve, right? Reminds me of someone that I know.
Well, Brian Rast, unfortunately having to give some chips away, and he looks pretty disappointed. There is the leaderboard. Lennart Topov from Germany sits atop with 5.695 million in chips, and Richard Lindecker from the United States is our short stack with just over 1.5 million in chips. 7 players remain out of 648 in this 2015 Aussie Millions main event. The action has been swift and aggressive. We've seen some very colourful plays so far, and yet 2 Australians remain in the hope to crown a hometown hero here at the Aussie Millions.